Hi, I am here responding to a question about accountability group. The question was, how do we go about developing an accountability group? What are some quick and easy tips for starting an accountability group? And I would start by saying, find just one other person who would like to have a relationship with the scriptures or with spiritual practices. And I'm talking specifically here about an accountability group for spiritual practices. That somebody who wants to read their scripture, who wants to work through Hope to Habits, that perhaps you're working through the Hope to Habits from Hope to Habits workbook, and you need someone that you can say, wow, I skipped yesterday, or I've skipped the last 3 days. I just need to be able to check in with you. Is that one person? Is that a multitude of people? I have I've used different kinds of accountability groups. Right now, my accountability group is a accountability partner. I talk to her every Tuesday morning. We talk about how we are, what our challenges for the last week were, what we want to celebrate about the last week, what we're going to be doing for the week ahead. Now, this accountability partner, I've been lucky enough to have tea with her every Tuesday morning. We do Tuesday tea together to talk and to catch up. We've been able to do that during the summer. Now, my schedule is about to change, and we won't be able to do that, but beginning in a couple of weeks. But already 2 weeks ago, we started talking about what now our check-in times may look like, what we may have to set aside within our accountability, what's most important to us. So, just kind of those ground, not rules, so to speak, but ground expectations. What is it that you want out of an accountability partner? By all means, do not seek out or go into an accountability partnership with somebody who is a member of your church. There's got to be mutuality, and that cannot happen. And I have seen it happen over and over again, and I experienced it myself, that you will get in there and you're going to share. We're doing spiritual work. Of course, we're going to share. We're going to share observations. We're going to share and work through practical applications, right, of the work that we're doing. The problem becomes, though, that person can turn and use that against you. They don't agree with the way things are going at the church. That can come back and that can bite you. You can't be fully real about your life with someone who's a member of your church, unless you're not in ministry in your church, right? Then you can do that. But if you're on staff, whether that staff position is paid or unpaid, if you anticipate, or it's a possibility ever that you'll end up on that staff, this is not the time. A church member is not the person for you. The question was also asked about, is it all right for women to work with men in accountability, men to work with women in accountability? This, until 2 years ago, I could have given you an easy answer. Today, my answer is not so easy because, quite honestly, I still have some reservations about this. Not reservations, just am kind of testing out my response that I'm about to give you. I do know this part, though. I have always said women should work with women and men work with men. It's because there is a very thin line psychologically, psycho-spiritually, and spiro-psychologically. There's this very, very thin, maybe even right on the same line between the spiritual part of ourselves and the sexual part of ourselves. And what we have watched hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over decades and centuries are those people who are some of the deepest spiritual people have found themselves having moral, ethical slips, violations, uh, sexual, based in sexual misconduct, like I say, ethical slips, and just sheer outreaches. And you can look at the greatest theologians, some of the greatest theologians. I'd be willing to venture most of the leading theologians and those who have been in relationships or near relationships with women, there have been problems. Even Thomas Merton, who wasn't near women, is really right in a cloistered setting. There were real tensions for him that you can read about in some of his work. So I have always said, and will continue to say, women with women, men with men, except when you're not heterosexual, right? Because that was the question. Well, what about those of us that are attracted to other women, or to other men, or that we find ourselves even questioning, not sure, all the different pansexual and pansexuality questions. And so in that case, I have to say, and in all cases, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you do not want to be in accountability, spiritual accountability, uh, partnership with somebody of a gender, a sex, a sexuality, um, to which you're attracted, right? I'm attracted to men, so I'm not going to be in relationships with men. I have friends and parishioners who are women attracted to women, right? And so I say, do not enter into a spiritual relationship with them. And I know that that may be controversial for some of you, but again, I'm going to come back down to the spiritual, sexual are right there on top of one another, and you want to keep this to the spiritual, and to allow for the depth of sharing. So that's why we are not going to cross that boundary, and we don't want to cross the boundary of staff and parishioner, right? Um, so let's see, did I want to say more about that? No, I think I've got that part. Where do we start? Start from scratch. If we're starting from scratch, find somebody else, listen for somebody else who's wanting to grow spiritually. You could talk to them and ask them, are you open to the possibility of having an accountability partner, or just a spiritual partner that we could check in once a week? You could use the model that you'll find, the reflection check-ins on the From Hope to Habits workbook. That can help. That would be a nice place to start. You could make the commitment to what your spiritual practice is, or what your spiritual practice you're going to be trying out in that coming week. I have my specific spiritual practice, so that with my accountability partner, she knows what I do every morning and every afternoon, and then she's able to ask me, or generally she doesn't have to ask, because I'm telling her, telling her how it went, how I did the week before, what I could have done differently, what I wish I had done differently, what I want to do again, what really worked into the coming week. So you can start with one person. Find somebody, though, who's kind of on equal footing with you spiritually. Say there's a scale of 1 to 6, with one kind of just starting into dabbing your toe into the spiritual practices pool, and then there's the 6 that they're really practicing their practices every day, that they've really got it pat. Say you're a 3. Rather than going to someone you really admire who's a 5 or a 6 and asking to be in partnership with them, look for someone who's a 3, maybe a 4, and not a 2 probably. You really want to stay on that even footing, because it's a mutual relationship. If you're seeking out somebody who's a 5 or a 6, really now what you're talking about is a mentoring kind of relationship. So I would say, by all means, seek out somebody who's a 5 or a 6 that can be a mentor to you, or a spiritual director would be one of those that would be a mentor to you. But ideally, the person that you are partnering with, they would have a spiritual director, or they might have a mentor as well. And so you could bring that much more fullness to your partnership. So you're looking for somebody who's even. If you are a pastor, again, you've got to find somebody outside of your church. So look at the pastors around in the community. Maybe you're in a minister's covenant group that you're listening, you're seeing, and that would be a good person that you could work with or at least approach. And if they say no, then you could ask them, so do you have someone that you would suggest or you would recommend? Groups 3 to 5. Yes, you remember if you're meeting weekly in person, that's going to get kind of large. So my piece has been one-on-one, but I know that one of our students in this course is in a group that's a number of people of women, young of moms that are able, and they do this by text. That's brilliant. So if you've got a group of people that you can text with, that is very cool. One of my friends is again, she's a young mom and she's in a small group in her church, and the women, the other young moms actually in her small group, they are reading scripture every day, and they have their prayer partner that they check in by phone every day, but then they're emailing out to one another. They're on this list together, right? They email out there what they saw in their scripture for that particular day. And I know the first time I saw her doing that, she gets to appointments early, so we had a 7:30 appointment, but she was there by 7 o'clock, so she could be typing, and then she made the phone call to her prayer partner, or as the case was going to be, her prayer partner's uh, voicemail. I want to give you one more tool, and I have posted this. If you're in the spiritual development course, or if you're in another one of our Center for Ministry and Lay Training courses, I always put it under section 9, additional resources. I have posted up here what are called journey groups, or life transformation groups is actually what I call these. And a life transformation group starts with 2 people. You ask someone else if they would be open to being in a life transformation group or an accountability partnership with you. And this then becomes a tool. And you'll find when you open it, what about larger groups? It will talk about that, and then what the values are, what you commit to: community, accountability, confidentiality, flexibility, and reproducibility, which means that you're going to grow your group, but you're never going to get larger than 4, because you can keep growing groups off of this first group. And I love this. This was put together by a minister named Neil Cole. I almost forgot his last name, Neil. Neil did this for church planting, and he started with life transformation groups. He started 3, 4, 5, and they just kept multiplying, and they came together to become church. He did this at least 2 or 3 times, is what I understand. So what happens in a journey group? It says your sin is confessed in mutual accountability. I know not everybody likes that word, but you'll see character conversation questions, and that's where that accountability comes in there. Scripture is read every week. You're going to read scriptures. You and your partner will read the exact same scripture, the same amount of scripture, and then you'll come back the next week to report in on how that went, and what, if anything, you received or moved you, touched you, confused you, angered you, scared you in that. And this third component is souls are regularly prayed for, because what you're going to do as part of this group is you're going to pray for other people to come to know Jesus. So I'm going to leave this with you. I'm not going to read through this. The character conversation questions. Again, you could do this by text. You could do this by email. Every person I work with in accountability, or when as a spiritual director, a spiritual counselor, I ask, and rarely, I can't remember the last time I made an exception. I do these by FaceTime, by Skype, by Zoom, my new favorite. I'm working with Microsoft Teams, not my favorite platform, Google Hangouts. I want to be able to see your eyes. I want to be able to see your face. I want you to be able to see my face. I want you to be able to see my eyes, so that we can truly have relationship and hold one another accountable. I'm very good at lying. I work very hard to not lie. I work some days very, very hard to not lie. I go out of my way to not lie. My children say I'm the queen of spin. I do the check on that, but I don't put myself into any greater temptation on that by you're not being able to see my face, not being able to look into my eyes. So I would say if you can't meet together one on one, then by all means, one on one in the same area, right, in close proximity to one another, bridge over this time and space. And I'm excited about the possibility, the potential of you and who your accountability partner is going to be.